Thank you all for tuning in to Primitive Organic Gardening Guitar today. I just want to do a real quick video update and talk about everything you need to know about capos. There's a lot of misinformation about capos out there, what capos are for, the different types of capos, how to use them, when to use them. If you look up capo in the dictionary or a musical dictionary, even the Wikipedia article, it's an Italian term, as most musical terms are, either Italian or Latin. It literally means something about like shortening the distance between, where the strings are anchored and the strings are tightened, shortening that distance with the strings to change the pitch. If you look up ways to use capos, when to use capos, most articles, including Wikipedia, will tell you that the purpose of the capo is to transpose a particular song into a different key without having to change the shape in which you would play that chord. So, a lot of people start out, playing open country chords. You got E major, E minor, D major, A major, A minor, open G, open C. You got all your standard, open country chords, and the capo will allow you to use those exact same shapes and produce frequencies, notes, sounds that are in a different key than what those shapes would normally produce without the capo on the neck, right? So the song I was about to play before I decided to record this video, the only reason I recorded this video about capos is because I heard a particular song on the radio yesterday. It was a modern country song. It was really cool, and it was kind of dark and interesting and had, somewhat uncommon chord progressions. I thought that'd be a fun song to learn. And when I go to learn a song, I usually play the song. Like I'll turn on the radio or turn on YouTube or put a CD in or put an MP3 in, and I'll listen to what I want to play. There's other ways to learn songs. You can look up the sheet music, you can look up chord charts, you can look up tab, pro tab. There's a lot of different ways to learn music. I can read sheet music, and while that is a useful skill, I find it to be too slow for a lot of the things I want to do. Same with tabs. Tabs kind of make me dizzy. It's just a lot to look at, and when you're trying to play things at high speeds, or think about putting in riffs and licks in between chords, tabs aren't just, it just doesn't work well for me. And same with sheet music. Sheet music, you got all these different notes stacked on top of each other and a bunch of lines, and your brain has to think about which notes are on which lines and how those notes translate into chord progressions, and it's just too slow. Like I said, reading sheet music is a useful skill. Reading tab charts, those are all useful skills, and that's great, and I can do all those things, but it's just not fast enough for me. So instead of looking up tabs or chord charts or sheet music, I just tend to listen to a song, and it's a lot faster for me to hear something and go from my ear to my brain to my hand. If I turn on the radio, it can be a song I've never heard before, and usually within about 10 seconds, I know exactly where to put my hand on the fretboard in order to reproduce the sound that I just heard. And it's just so much faster for me than trying to read sheet music. I got to turn on the computer and then go to Google and then type in the name of the song and then try to find which particular sheet music is free, and most sheet music is not free. And then you look at tabs and chord charts, and half the ones on the internet are incorrect, and it's just a rabbit hole. So like I said, it's a lot faster for me to just hear something and reproduce it. But anyway, so the song I wanted to learn yesterday was in the key of F minor, which is kind of a strange key for guitarists. You don't hear a whole lot of guitar-driven songs in F minor. A lot of guitarists play in E minor. E minor is an extremely common key to play in because it's really easy to solo in. But F minor, you don't hear a lot of that. So I thought that was interesting. And like I said, I always try to play a song in the original key it was written, and there's a couple different reasons for that. There's both practical reasons and ideological reasons for that. In terms of practicality, it's important to play in different keys, especially if you're playing gigs, because if every single song you play is in the same key, it's not going to be all that interesting for the audience. They've done studies, and orchestras can, play a particular piece of classical music in, this key, and then play it in a completely different key, and the audience will perceive those things slightly differently. I don't want to get into like a bunch of hippy-dippy nonsense, but different keys tend to convey different feelings or emotions to the listener. If you have a song that's written in the key of A minor and you decide to play it in C sharp minor, it's going to sound just a little bit different. And so that's the practical reason. The ideological reason is that if a song is written in a particular key, the artist wrote it in that key for a particular reason, and if you try to change it into a different key to make it easier for you to sing or play, that's disrespectful. But anyway, so this video here is about capos. And so again, when I went to look up this song the other day, I'd already figured out most of the chords, but I just kind of wanted to find a nice chord chart where I could look at the chords over the lyrics, and it said capo 1. I thought, capo 1? That's kind of interesting. I guess I did realize this song was in F minor. So they said, put the capo 1, first fret capo. And with the capo on the first fret, that'll allow you to play these, same shapes that you know and are very comfortable with. So that's an E minor shape, but now it's not an E minor chord because the capo is changing the pitch, right? This would be a D major shape, but now it's not a D major chord because the capo has changed that pitch, right? And so we'll talk a little bit about different types of capos, when to use capos, how to use capos. We kind of talked a little bit about the definition of a capo. It allows you to transpose a song into a different key without changing the chord shape patterns. So there's different types of capos. Sometimes you see spring clamp capos that sometimes have a little piece of foam on them and they clamp. This one is a metal bar that's got some plastic around it, and it's got this like bungee cord wrapped around. And so depending on what type of capo you're using, whether it's this bungee style with the metal or whether it's a spring clamp with the foam, the first thing you want to do with the capo is find a nice trash can full of garbage. This one happens to have some stale pizza crusts and some other trash in here, and so we want to take that capo and we just want to throw it in the garbage can. And once you've done that, then you're ready to play. So this particular song was in the key of F minor, and so the chord chart said put the capo on the first fret, and then you can play your standard old E minor shape without having to learn a new chord or develop yourself further as a musician. But now that the capo is in the trash can where it belongs, we're going to learn an F minor chord. So we're going to use our bar shape here, and minor chords, bar shapes are actually a lot easier to play than major bars because they only require 3 fingers, and you can also take your middle finger and stack it on top of your, I guess that's your pointer, which gives it more pressure to keep the finger on top of the frets. So your F minor chord is going to be here. And so once you start to learn all of your different bar chords, it doesn't matter what key a song is in, you can play that song in the original key that it was written in and be respectful to the artist that wrote it and be practical and have all the different songs you play, be in a couple different keys so that you stay entertained and your audience stays entertained and everyone's engaged and happy. And you'll further develop your skills as a guitar player. So it shouldn't matter if a song is in the most obscure key that you've ever heard of. If you're comfortable with all your different bar chords, it doesn't matter. What's the difference between an F minor and an F sharp minor? All you're doing is sliding up and down the neck. So there's a lot of people who spend 10, 20 years playing guitar and they only know the same old open country shapes. You got your E minor, your E major, your G, your D, your A minor, your C, and that's ridiculous. You can't go your entire life as a guitar player and only know how to play 6 chords. You're going to be dependent on capos, and capos are a crutch, and you shouldn't depend on things like that. So anyway, learn all your different shapes, and then it really doesn't matter what key a song is in because you can play it, and then nobody has to see a capo on the neck of your guitar and has to snicker at you. It's kind of funny because if you're playing a gig, you always know who the musicians in the audience are. If you have a capo on the fretboard, somebody's going to snicker. Here this guy is standing up here on stage playing a gig for money, and he's got a capo on the fretboard because he can't be bothered to learn a couple extra chord shapes. It's embarrassing. It's ridiculous. But anyway, so that was my quick video update on how to use capos, when to use capos, why to use capos, and how capos belong in the trash can. Thank you all for tuning in.